think one of the things that got brought to my attention was, like, whilst schools will 100% have safeguarding policies in place, and I work in a chain of health clubs that have safeguarding policies in place as well. Like, I literally I don't work anywhere near children. I have to go through safeguarding modules every year, and on how to, deal with situations around children. But one of the ones that got flagged to me was religious institutions, so churches, mosques, synagogues, that kind of stuff, where children also go to these places. And from what I was told, and I didn't really fact check this, but they don't have safeguarding procedures in place. So children are actually at risk when they go into these places. And there's certainly been, from my impression anyway, a lot of stories over however many years of children being taken advantage of in these places. I mean, I'd like to hope that really at this stage it doesn't happen in schools at all anymore. Like, it's got massively clamped down, and
thankfully every school I've worked in, there's not been any incident like that. It's something that, I can't begin to quite understand an adult's mindset when they want to take advantage of a child. Like, you look at the point, so you're employed by the school to provide a service, to look after young children, to help this young person grow in front of you, and all that's in your mind is, I can take advantage of this child. I can't really explain how it makes me feel. Like, I've had incidents, but not involving staff, involving families. So it was, I can't disclose too much, but it was an incident where a student was experiencing something within the family, and I noticed a big change in this person. So she just was one of the most polite students they'd ever come across. Was really active, and then just one day went really quiet, completely changed her hairstyle, wasn't talking to the same group of friends, was giving me kind of cryptic messages, was just talking to me and walking off. So telling me something that was out of character about herself, and then walking off. So we flagged it to safeguarding. And then it turned out that, like I said, one of her family members was taking advantage of her, essentially. At the time, she wasn't living with her parents, she lived with another family member. And that other family, everyone knew. Everybody knew. Parents knew, and the nan knew. Everybody knew, but no one did anything. So one day she was found outside of school, just walking around late at night in the uniform, and was picked up by another family who lived by the school, but the girl went to school as well, identified her, brought her in, called the school, police were involved, and they ended up getting arrested. But at that point, the family member that was guilty of doing what he was doing was in the school. They pulled him into the school, and they closed off one of the areas where they were, so the police were on the other side. And all I wanted to do was go into the room and rip his head off. That was all I could think about. I did teach my lessons. Someone covered me. I just sat in the office, and I was like, I need to go upstairs to see this person, because you've essentially destroyed this young person for no reason. It doesn't make sense. It will make sense. It never will make sense. So that's why, when you have to work in a school, to work with children, you have to naturally care about young people. There's no two ways about it. If you want to be good at your job, if you want them to succeed, you need to care about young people. You can't go into the profession because you think, you get loads of problems, or our kids will be alright, I could just tolerate them. It doesn't work like that. You're involved in their lives. You have to you have to be a teacher, you have to be a role model, you have to be a carer, you have to be a parent sometimes. You have to do all these roles to look after these young people. And there's no way that you can like take advantage of them or destroy them if you really care about your job, if you really care about the children. So when I hear about stuff like that, it baffles me. It really, really baffles me.
There was really, really bizarre thing I saw on YouTube. It's like Channel 4 do all these documentary shows. It was like really like 10 minutes long. Probably about as long as it could have been, but given the nature of it.
Yeah.
And they basically got this pedophile, right? This self-confessed pedophile to come in. They put like this bunny mask on to hide his identity, and they stuck him in front of these three individuals. So there was like 2 women and a guy. I think they were all parents. I recognized the guy because he's been on a podcast with somebody else that I know, and he's also been on one of the other documentaries. So he's an ex-offender, and now like runs a fitness facility and all this other kind of stuff. There was a lady, and then there was another lady who's like in a same-sex partnership and has adopted a child. So basically, 3 of them had to sit there, and they interviewed this pedophile who he says he hasn't done anything. The only thing that he's confessing to is the fact that he does have sexual feelings towards children. And it was, I'd never quite seen something like that. And he obviously was trying to plead that sort of case that this isn't something I've chosen to feel. This isn't something I've chosen to have. I just have it. But I'm morally aware enough to not act upon those things. So here's where it gets a bit questionable, is that when they asked him questions, and then he was just like, yeah, so I have done volunteer work with children. And at that point, they're like, so you know that you feel like this,
and you're
putting yourself in and around children. And he goes, yeah, I know, but like I've never done anything. But it's like, well, why are you? So like, because what you were saying there about you have to care, you have to have that. You would naturally have that duty of like, I wouldn't do anything to put this child in any sort of harm, physical, mental, emotional, or any other kind. But to know that you are potentially capable of that because of these, instinctual feelings that you don't have any control over, yet you put yourself in that situation. I think at that point he kind of like lost them. Like you could see they were getting...
Yeah. Like you would naturally get angry. Like even now, it doesn't make sense. If you know, even if you claimed you've never done anything, if you know that any given point that you know that these feelings, sexual feelings towards, like as adults, towards other adults, are quite intense. And a lot of the time you might hear stories of people go, I don't want to do this, don't want to do it, but they do it anyway. What's to say that he won't have that moment where he just does it anyway because the feeling is too intense and that he can't control it? Because just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So then if he's putting himself in that environment, we shouldn't. If you really, like I said, if you really care about young people, you don't put them in danger. And if you are the danger, you can't work with young people.
No, it's to a slightly different extent. I even observe it, I guess, even amongst adults, right? And the whole sort of stereotypical guys, like chasing after girls, and sometimes that gets a bit inappropriate. Yeah. And whilst I do train women, I mostly train men. Because I'm aware that even in personal training situations, and it happens a lot in personal training, where personal trainers sometimes take advantage of that sort of closeness in the working relationship they have with their client. And sometimes it happens the other way around too. And people do actually kind of end up meeting that way, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it does come off as a little bit creepy and a little bit sinister. Now, you know, I'm attracted to women, and whenever I kind of like see women, I have to ask myself, is the reason I want to speak to that person because of that person, or is it because I'm physically attracted to that person? And often it's just going to be because I'm physically attracted to that person, and so there's nothing else that I'm trying to gain from that interaction other than this attraction that I have, and then I just kind of like bypass it. I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm then going to potentially be inappropriate in any particular way as a professional.
Yeah.
In your own personal life, if you want to, you know, take your shot with someone, you're free, right? But as a personal trainer, delivering a professional service, no, it cannot be driven by or led by my own sexual interest. And if it is, I would just have to like not go through with working with that person.
But even if, let's say, that for whatever reason you decided to act upon this feeling you had towards your female client, she as an adult has the ability and the understanding to tell you no. If we go back to that guy, that child, he could overpower a child. And that's what it is in a lot of the cases, because they're raped and attacked by these predators. So adults, you can say no, you can consent, you can not like do whatever you like. But a child doesn't have that same opportunity. When someone of a much older age and a much bigger size is making the decision for them, then what chance do they have? And as well, children are more susceptible to being groomed by whatever means. But children can be manipulated by adults. And like, again, going back to this guy, he's just sitting in my head now, saying that he will never act on it. But if he's acting a certain way because he feels a certain way towards a child, he's then essentially doing what he said he'd never do by trying to project his feelings onto this child, creating a relationship with this child. As an adult, you probably see that coming. You say, oh, they're getting a bit too close, or they're asking inappropriate questions. Don't have that same conversation with a child. Child's be like, oh, this person's nice. Oh, this person's friendly. Oh, this person's warm. That's what they're thinking. They're not thinking the same kind of things that we would do as adults.
Yeah, no, I very rarely interact with children.
It's tested.
And you do forget in a world where you're kind of mostly interacting with adults how susceptible children are to suggestion, and like how vulnerable they are. And I think I actually mostly wanted to talk about, I guess, the impact of physical education on like well-being for a person, and if it starts as a child and how that then impacts them as an adult. But obviously there's a lot that happens in a person's life, and a lot of who we are now kind of stems from what happened to us as children. And I think that's probably why adults start to really care about what happens to children, because we've got to experience the impact of the experiences that we had, both positive and negative, on who we are today in our lives, and kind of have this natural instinct to want it to be better for the next generation.